I was just watching a thing where they were worried about where all this money's going to come from. And I was thinking, in times of war, if you lose the war, the money's no good. But, that's like if somebody's going to attack you, you don't worry about where the money's coming from. So, in times of war, you don't worry about where this money's going to come from as long as you win the war. So as long as you win the war, you don't worry where the money's coming from. So, as long as we win the war, you don't worry where the money's coming from. So in the Department of Peace, you don't worry where the money's coming from. The War Department don't worry where the money's coming from. The money comes from nowhere in times of war. You don't pay it back to anybody. It's sort of like an unlimited supply. In times of war, you need an unlimited amount of money to win the war, because if you don't win the war, the enemy comes in and mistreats you, and if you don't win the war, then the money's not going to be any good, and if you win the war, then the money's good, although it came from nowhere, because you didn't have money to start with, because if you don't spend the money's not going to be any good because you lost the war. And if you win the war, the money's kind of no good because you spent money you didn't have. But if you didn't spend the money wouldn't have been any good. But if you hadn't spent the money, you'd have lost the war. If it comes down to the dollar sign and you spent $1 not enough on one bullet, and just one bullet killed somebody that made a difference, and you didn't spend that $1 on that one bullet, and that one bullet made a difference in the war, and you didn't spend it, and that $1 made a difference. If you didn't spend it or you did spend it, and you did spend it and you won the war, or you didn't spend it and you lost the war, and that $1 made a difference, you're better off spending that $1. That $1 made a difference, and so you're better off spending however much money it takes, no matter what it takes. And, so in times of peace, you should spend as much money as it takes for the infrastructure. So no matter how much money it takes for the infrastructure, you should spend it. No matter how much it takes to replace all the bridges, because we got to replace the bridges and the roads to make it the United States works. No matter how much it takes to replace all the bridges that need fixed and all the roads that need fixed and the electrical infrastructure, it's all crumbling. We need to replace all our electrical infrastructure, and to replace it for the future, we need to plan for the future. That all takes money, and it's if we need it, we need it, and it shouldn't have to. That's like people aren't made of money. They say money don't grow on trees, but we have a lot of apple trees that grow apples, and you sell the apples. But where does this money come from? The people use to buy the apples. They may have to borrow it, but where did they get this money in the bank to borrow the money? But it's a funny thing. In times of war, if you don't spend the money for war, you lose the war. So, you got to have the money for war, so you got to have the money for peace to build the stuff we need for peace. You got to have the money for war to win the war, so you got to have the money for peace to win the peace, to get the peace going. Because if you don't have the infrastructure for peace, to have the infrastructure, to have the stuff ready for war, because if you don't have any bridges to have this ready for war, if you don't have the equipment to move the equipment around in case of war, if you can't move stuff around the country in case of war, you won't be ready for war.